Metabolism and acid-base balance. So in order to maintain metabolism, we have to have energy. Everything that the body does requires some form of energy. Energy production in the cells is just a chemical process of breaking down glucose into its smaller parts, into its baser parts, which are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, into molecules that can be used in this process. Cells require energy to carry out functions needed to maintain their own integrity, to make sure that the sodium-potassium pump is working, to make sure that they are able to produce substances needed by the body like proteins, to develop and maintain your tissues. To produce the greatest amount of energy with the least amount of toxic byproducts, the body needs a constant supply of glucose and oxygen. And so we get glucose from the digestive tract and oxygen from our respiratory tract. Now, these chemical processes that allow us to grow, maintain, repair, respond to its environment, basically maintain homeostasis, are collectively known as metabolism. And metabolism is going to take two main forms, and this is going to be anabolism and catabolism. Now, anabolism occurs when the body manufactures or makes more complex substances from simpler ones. And to me, I always think about anabolic steroids, which are used to build muscle. So it's building from something else. It's making something from something else. Now, catabolism is breaking down of your substances into simpler ones. And for some reason, this makes me think of cannibalism, where you're breaking down a person. But catabolism is where you break down into simpler ones. Now, what the benefit of catabolism is that it's going to release energy in the process, whereas anabolism is going to require energy to occur. Now, when we are looking at energy production, we are creating energy in the form of a molecule that's called adenosine triphosphate, which is also known as ATP. Now, the cells create this ATP in this process called oxidative phosphorylation. This takes place inside the cell in two separate phases. And a lot of people think of anaerobic and aerobic metabolism as we always have aerobic and we resort to anaerobic when we don't have oxygen, but it's actually kind of the opposite. We always have anaerobic metabolism going. So what happens during this first phase, which happens in the cytoplasm, this glucose is broken down into your pyruvic acid, and this process is called glycolysis. This step doesn't need oxygen, and this is what we know as anaerobic metabolism. The problem with this is it only produces 2 ATP. Now, when you have oxygen present, the second phase of this energy production, the aerobic metabolism, can happen, and this is called the Krebs cycle. This is going to take place in your mitochondria, and this process actually is going to result in 36 ATP, or 36 molecules of ATP created through this process. It also is going to release heat, which is going to contribute to helping maintain your body temperature, and it's also going to allow the breakdown of pyruvic acid, which is going to turn it into carbon dioxide and water. So not only does it get rid of the byproducts from the first one, the other byproducts that it creates, the heat, benefit the body. So you can see where it's much better overall for the body to continue on to the Krebs cycle and that aerobic metabolism. If you don't have oxygen, then you're going to have an insufficient amount of energy produced, so because you're only getting 2 ATP instead of 36 every time. And then additionally, you're not going to have the breakdown of pyruvic acid, so it's going to be converted to lactic acid, which is a pretty toxic byproduct that can accumulate in the body. In an anaerobic environment, ATP production is reduced greatly, and then these acids cannot be converted into water and carbon dioxide for easy elimination from the body. So when you have this lack of energy production and accumulation of these acids from the metabolism, you get a condition in which it affects the pH, and the cells can't function, and other chemical reactions can't take place appropriately or properly when the pH becomes imbalanced. So the pH is the potential of hydrogen, which is just a measure of the acid-base balance in the body. From a chemical standpoint, an acid is just a substance that can donate a hydrogen. An alkali is a substance that can accept a hydrogen. And a neutral would be a pH of 7. So this pH scale is what they call an inverse logarithm that ranges from 0 to 14. So the closer to 0 you get, the more acidotic the substance is, and the closer to 14 you get, the more alkalotic the substance is. Now, when we have oxygen present in enough quantities, this hydrogen that's produced with the metabolism combines with the oxygen, so you get two hydrogen atoms that bind with your one oxygen, and that forms your H2O, or water. The other product that's created with this is CO2, which is then carried back in the blood to the lungs where we breathe it out. So this really helps us get rid of all these extra byproducts there and maintain that pH balance. It gets rid of what's going to put us out of whack. In this inverse scale, you've got 0 to 14, with 7 being neutral and 0 being the more acidic and 14 being alkalotic. So the closer to 0 you get, the more acidotic something becomes, and you have a higher concentration of hydrogen. And the closer to 14 you get, the more alkalotic you get, with a lower concentration of hydrogen ions. Now, your buffer system is a way that we deal with to get rid of any excess hydrogen ions. So these are converted into other substances through a buffer system called your bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer system. And what this does is it's going to help convert extra hydrogen into carbon dioxide and water. Now, if you'll note on here, blood is just slightly north of neutral. The ideal pH for the body is going to be 7.35 to 7.45.